Picture this. It's 3 a.m., you're flat on your back staring at the ceiling, and your brain is hosting a full-blown disaster parade. What if the car dies tomorrow? What if your laptop just doesn't turn on? What if your job disappears? What if your pet suddenly needs some crazy expensive emergency surgery? Ring any bells? Now imagine this. There is an actual dollar amount that can shut down most of those 3 a.m. panic spirals and completely change how you move through life. Not I won the lottery money, a specific, reachable amount. A lot of people think money milestones are just random numbers rich people made up to flex and make everyone else feel behind. But here's the twist. There's real psychology and basic math behind why certain amounts of money make your life feel totally different. And the first real game changer? It's not $1 million. It's not even $100,000. It's $10,000. I'm Vannessa, and I spend an unhealthy amount of time obsessing over money, human behavior, and why some people seem to drift over financial potholes while others hit every single one with no spare tire. If you've ever wondered what it actually feels like to have different levels of savings and how each milestone quietly rewires the way you make decisions, go ahead and hit subscribe and give this video a like if it helps make things click. Before we talk about why $10,000 is such a big deal, I want to paint the picture of life without it. You're at the grocery store, holding 2 cereal boxes, the one you actually like, and the sad cardboard-tasting knockoff. You're not thinking, what do I want? You're thinking, what can I afford without wrecking my week? Your friends text, hey, dinner tonight. It's like $25 a person, and suddenly you're crafting a super creative excuse because saying, that would nuke my budget is just not coming out of your mouth. This is normal life for millions of people living paycheck to paycheck. Every decision is a tiny spreadsheet in your head. Every unexpected expense feels like the start of a crisis. You're constantly on defense, instead of actually playing offense with your money. But this is where things get interesting. Something weird and very real happens when you stack up your first $10,000, and it has nothing to do with splurging on fancy stuff. Most people who hit that number don't suddenly start buying luxury everything. The real change is quieter and way more powerful. The first big shift? Your relationship with risk. When your savings account is basically a desert, every choice feels dangerous. New job? Terrifying. Moving cities? Terrifying. Even planning a vacation feels like tempting fate. One random bill and boom, chaos. But when you've got $10,000 just sitting there, not doing anything dramatic, those same choices feel manageable. Still important, still serious, but not life or death. You're probably not going to storm into your boss's office, quit, and go become a professional juggler. But you might finally feel brave enough to ask for that promotion you've been replaying in your head for months. You might take that course, that certification, that class that makes you more valuable at work. The safety net doesn't turn you reckless. It just frees up your brain to think about something other than, how do I survive until Friday? There's also a brain chemistry piece to this. When you see a 5-figure number in your bank account for the first time, something inside you chills out. Studies show that financial security lowers cortisol, your main stress hormone. That means hitting $10,000 doesn't just change your budget. It changes how your body reacts to everyday problems. Think about the last time a little orange check engine light popped up on your dashboard. If you're broke, that light feels like a ticking time bomb. How much is this going to cost? Do I have to put it on a card? Do I call my parents? My friends? What do I even do? But if you've got $10,000 in savings, same light, same car, totally different feeling. You're annoyed, not terrified. You can fix the problem instead of spiraling about the problem. That shift from panic to, annoying seems small, but it changes everything. When you're not constantly scared about money, you make better choices. You sleep deeper. You're more focused at work. You're more patient with your partner. your kids, the poor customer service rep who didn't cause your issue? Money stress touches every part of who you are. Removing a big chunk of that stress frees up mental space you can finally use to actually improve your life instead of just putting out fires. Here's the part almost nobody talks about. Most of the power of that $10,000 doesn't come from using it. It comes from knowing it's there. There's a name for this, the emergency fund effect. An emergency fund is not really about the emergencies. It's about the peace of mind that you could handle them. Most people who build up $10,000 in cash don't end up draining it for disasters. Instead, they use the confidence from having it to chase opportunities. They enroll in classes. They move to better neighborhoods. They say yes to projects, ideas, or side hustles that could bump up their income. Or they simply have enough mental bandwidth to think bigger than, how do I make it to the end of the month? Then there's the confidence thing. You can't measure it, but you can absolutely feel it. When you know money is sitting in your account, you carry yourself differently. You negotiate differently. You're way more willing to walk away from bad deals, bad landlords, bad jobs, even bad relationships, because you're not acting out of desperation. That confidence often leads to better offers, better treatment, and better long-term outcomes. Now you might be thinking, Vannessa, $10,000 sounds impossible. I'm struggling to save $100. Totally fair. So let's talk about why it feels impossible. The hardest part usually isn't the money, it's the identity. Most people treat saving like a crash diet. Cut everything, suffer for a few months, hit a number, then go straight back to old habits because it was miserable. But people who actually get to $10,000 don't treat saving as a temporary punishment. They treat it as becoming a new kind of person, not someone who is broke and trying to save, someone who saves. That identity shift is everything. When you see yourself as the kind of person who keeps money, you start spotting ways to cut pointless spending you never noticed before. You get creative about making a little extra. You start asking, what does this do for my future? Instead of, do I feel like it right now? And the great part, it gets easier. The first $1,000 is brutal. You feel every dollar. You change habits. You say no to stuff. You fight old patterns every day. The second $1,000, a little easier. You've already tightened some things up. By the time you're aiming at $5,000 or $6,000, it starts to feel normal. You've got systems, habits. You're not relying on willpower every second. There's also a simple math reality here. $10,000 is enough to cover most of the things that blow up people's finances. Car repairs, most medical surprises, a sudden job loss, family emergencies. Most of those situations land under that $10,000 mark. So once you're there, you're pretty much insulated from the worst of the paycheck-to-paycheck chaos. You might get hit with a problem, but it doesn't knock you flat anymore. Maybe the biggest mental shift, though, is how you start seeing money itself. Before you have savings, money feels like sand slipping through your fingers. Every paycheck comes in, and then it's gone. Every dollar you spend feels like it disappeared forever. Once you've got $10,000 sitting there doing its thing, money stops being this scary, vanishing resource and starts looking like a tool. You start thinking, wait, if I invest this, could it grow? If I put some into a side hustle, could that bring more in? What if I use this to buy myself more time or better skills? That's when concepts like investing, side hustles, and passive income suddenly get way more interesting. Not because you woke up as a financial genius, but because your brain is finally free enough from stress to even think about them. When you're terrified about this month's rent, you're not Googling retirement plans. When you're counting coins for groceries, you're not comparing index funds. Here's a fun little mind bender. The person with $10,000 in savings is way closer to financial independence than someone with zero savings who earns double their income. Why? Because the saver learned the most important skill in money, not earning it, keeping it. You probably know somebody making six figures who is permanently broke. Fancy car, nice apartment, brunches, cocktails, and $20 salads. And yet, no savings. Meanwhile, somebody earning way less might have quietly built a solid cushion by being intentional with every dollar. The gap isn't income, it's mindset. Reaching $10,000 is like taking an advanced course in I know how to handle my money now. You learn to separate wants from needs. You figure out how to cut costs without feeling like your life sucks. You build patience, which might be the single most powerful money skill on earth. So, what does $10,000 actually do for you in real life? Let's get specific. Car trouble? Most repairs land somewhere between $500 and $3,000. With $10,000 in the bank, that's annoying, not catastrophic. Medical stuff? No, you're not paying for major surgery in cash, but most urgent care visits, ER checkups, random injuries, and surprise prescriptions fall into a range you can realistically handle. Job loss? That's the big scary one. With $10,000, depending on your expenses, you've got maybe 3 to 6 months of breathing room. Time to look for a job you actually want, not just grab the first thing that shows up. That breathing room is priceless. And here's where it gets really fun. $10,000 doesn't just protect you, it opens doors. Maybe you find a certification course that costs $2,000 and could boost your salary by $10,000 a year. With no savings, that's a maybe someday thing. With a cushion, it's a serious option. Maybe a friend is starting a small business and needs a partner or a small investor. Without savings, you're cheering from the sidelines. With savings, you can at least think about joining in if it makes sense. To be clear, I'm not telling you to throw your entire emergency fund into your friend's revolutionary crypto app. I'm saying that having options is a totally different life than having none. And that difference shows up outside of money too. When you have savings, you sleep differently. Literally. People with emergency funds report way better sleep than people who are one surprise bill away from chaos. Financial stress is one of the biggest reasons people lie awake at night. Remove that, and your body calms down. Your relationships get better too. Money problems are one of the top reasons couples fight and break up. When you're not constantly on edge about bills, you've got more emotional energy to actually enjoy the people you love, instead of snapping at them because you're secretly freaking out about the electric bill. And let's talk confidence again for a second. Walking into a job interview when you desperately need the job feels completely different than walking in knowing, if this doesn't work out, I'll be okay. You ask for more. You negotiate. You're not radiating panic. Employers feel that, and that often turns into better offers, better pay, and better opportunities, which then feed back into your finances in a very real way. Now, let's be honest, $10,000 is still a big number. If you're living paycheck to paycheck, it can feel like a mountain. The good news? You do not have to climb it in one sprint. In fact, trying to save too aggressively is usually how people fail. They go all in, no fun, no life, for 3 months, then burn out and swipe the credit card to reward themselves, and boom, back to zero. The people who actually get there often start small. $25 a month, $50 a month, whatever doesn't make your life miserable. The magic is consistency, not perfection. You build the habit first. Then as your income goes up or your expenses creep down, you increase the amount. Here's a little reality check that might sting, but might also motivate you. The average American spends thousands every year on coffee runs, takeout, random snacks, and I didn't feel like cooking meals. Not even talking about car payments or streaming subscriptions, just pure convenience spending. If you redirected even a fraction of that, you could hit $10,000 in a few years without living like a cave person. I'm not saying never buy coffee at N. I'm saying you probably have more wiggle room than it feels like. The difference between the person who builds savings and the person who doesn't is usually awareness and intention, not income. The ripple effect of that first $10,000 goes way beyond I can handle emergencies now. It changes how you think about risk. It changes how you look at opportunities. It changes how you plan or even believe in your future. Most importantly, it proves something huge to yourself. I can set a big financial goal and actually hit it. Once you do that, aiming for the next $10,000 doesn't feel like a fantasy. Then the next, then maybe bigger goals. Suddenly, financial independence isn't a meme, it's a path. Not because you got lucky, not because someone handed you money, but because you became the person who keeps money and uses it wisely. The transformation that happens when you save your first $10,000 isn't just about the number in your account. It's about who you had to become to make it happen. And that new version of you doesn't just upgrade your bank balance, it upgrades your whole life. Let's talk about one more thing: decision fatigue. Sounds like corporate nonsense, but it's very real. Every day you make tiny money decisions: generic pasta or name brand, munch out or bring something from home, premium gas or regular. Each little calculation chips away at your mental energy. By the end of the day, you're exhausted, not just from work, but from constantly asking, can I afford this? Now picture having $10,000 in the bank. Suddenly, 90% of those micro decisions stop being survival questions. You're not picking the cheaper pasta because you're scared. You're picking based on what you like or what's on sale, not because one wrong move breaks your budget. I know someone who told me the first time they walked into a grocery store after hitting $10,000 in savings, they almost cried. Not because they went wild and filled their cart with champagne and lobster, but because for the first time, they could focus on what they wanted to eat, not what they could afford to eat. That is a quiet, very real kind of freedom. Now, let's be clear. Having $10,000 doesn't make you rich. You're not quitting your job to move to a private island. You're still going to think twice before buying some random $1,000 gadget you don't need. What it does give you is breathing room. And breathing room is the foundation for almost every good financial decision you will ever make. When you're not suffocating, you can think strategically. You notice your car insurance is renewing and actually shop around instead of just accepting the new bill. You realize your phone plan is ridiculous and switch to something cheaper, fees and all, because you can handle one-time costs. These little moves might save $50 here, $80 there, and when you're not panicked all the time, you're way more likely to spot and act on them. Over time, those small wins add up and make the next goal easier to reach. Here's another fun psychology twist. When you have zero savings, every dollar feels precious and fragile. Losing $50 feels like a tragedy. When you've got $10,000, individual dollars feel less terrifying. That doesn't mean you start wasting money. It means you're more willing to spend on things that might increase your earning power. The broke version of you skips a $50 networking event because that's a lot of money. The $10,000 in the bank version of you goes and maybe meets someone who ends up helping you land a job that pays $5,000 more a year. The safety net doesn't turn you careless. It makes you brave in smart ways. I've seen this over and over. People hit that first real savings milestone, and suddenly their careers take off. Not because money magically creates promotions, but because confidence does. And confidence often comes from not being one bill away from disaster. There's one last angle nobody really talks about in personal finance videos: the social side of money. When you're always stressed about cash, it changes how you act around people. You might dodge hangouts because you're scared of the bill. You might feel embarrassed or ashamed and pull away. You might even feel a little bitter toward friends who seem better off. That stuff quietly messes with your friendships, your dating life, even your family relationships. So yeah, $10,000 is not just a number on a screen. It's a mental reset. It's a confidence upgrade. It's extra patience, better sleep, calmer conversations, and fewer fights. From walking into interviews like, "Let's see if you are a good fit for me," to going to bed without your brain listing every possible disaster, this milestone kicks off a domino effect most people never see coming. If your bank balance right now looks like a sad little password from 1950, don't freak out. Start small, stay consistent, and remember, the person you become while saving that first $10,000 is worth way more than the money itself.